Hello everyone. Hey there learners, and welcome to part 10 of the Trying to Solve a 100-Year-Old Family Mystery. Of course, at this point, we've actually already mostly solved that 100-year-old family mystery, and if you want to see what was solved or what was mostly solved with that, then watch the previous parts of this series. Now it's kind of moved on to more be trying to solve a 200-year-old family mystery, because now we've got our second adoption here, Hamilton, who was the grandfather of the birth father of my great-grandfather. So now we have two adoptions in that story. We're going to explore some of Hamilton's parents, and we're also going to be looking at my dad's Y-DNA results. All right, so let's start with a recap of part 9. We have Hamilton here, and on records he is listed as the son of Claiborne Brown and Sarah Harmon. However, if you've seen our previous parts, you know that we find that very suspect. Part of that is because of their birth years. Claiborne and Sarah were born about 1760, about 1763. There's no exact birth date for them, but that's approximately when they were born. So they would have been in their 50s when Hamilton was born. That alone isn't too suspect, but add into that all the other children listed for Claiborne and Sarah. They have about 5 other sons that are mostly confirmed as their children. They were in their 20s or 30s when Hamilton was born. So a lot of that indicates to us that maybe Hamilton was not the actual biological son of Claiborne and Sarah. Many possibilities. Could be his grandparents, could be an uncle and aunt, who knows? But with the new through lines feature in Ancestry, we were able to determine that Lewis Brown, who was listed as one of Hamilton's brothers, so one of Claiborne and Sarah's sons, we do have DNA connections with this Lewis Brown, and I believe this one is on my uncle's results on Ancestry, and the next one here is my aunt's results, multiple DNA results. So we are connected to Lewis Brown, who was listed as Hamilton's brother. So here's Lewis Brown here. He's one of their actual children, but Hamilton we do not believe is one of their children, even though we do have a connection with Lewis. We also have this connection to William Riley Brown, who doesn't have any paper connection to the Brown family, but we have multiple DNA connections on GEDmatch, Ancestry, MyHeritage, and 23andMe that are descended from William Riley Brown, and somewhat high CM counts, that's centimorgans. So there's actually a pretty strong connection with this William Riley Brown. We're not sure what his connection is with Hamilton Wade Brown. His father was Sterling Brown. William H. went by Sterling Brown. We're not sure what the actual connection is, but the other descendants of Hamilton Wade Brown also connect with the descendants of William Riley Brown. So they are connected genetically. We just don't know how they're connected genealogically. All right, so Y-DNA results. If you remember, I said that I was having my dad take a Y-DNA test with Family Tree DNA. We went with the cheapest test, the Y12, so we knew that our results would be limited, and he got the results for this actually in January, so quite a while ago. I just haven't brought this as part of my series yet. But here are his results. He had a total of 18 matches, and that's a really low number of matches. There's a lot of people who get, hundreds of matches, especially if you go with a lower marker count, 12 markers, because once you get more markers, that your pool is being limited more. So if we went up to like 37 markers, it would bring this down even more. And so these are basically the most of our matches right now. Now, these are the people who match my father on 12 markers on his Y DNA. And one of the great things about Y DNA is surname projects. And so one of the things we were really hoping to find out is if we connect to an overwhelming surname through the Y DNA. And he did this before we knew that Hamilton Wade Brown was possibly not the son of his listed parents. And in fact, I think my dad took this test before we even found out who the birth father was of my great-grandfather. So we hadn't gotten the results yet of this when we did find out that it was the Browns who fathered my great-grandfather. So we found out that that's who was my great-grandfather's father, but then the results came in. Now, do we see a surname that's being repeated, the majority surname here, especially the ones that have a genetic distance of 0? That means that there's no variant of the 12 markers tested. So we've got Cooper, 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 Godfrey, Cooper, Cooper, Douglas, Clark, Cooper, Putnam, Cooper, and then we get into the genetic distance of 1, and we do actually have 2 Browns down here, but they are more distantly related. So obviously the surname that is overwhelmingly the majority here is Cooper. What does that mean? Well, I mean, it could mean that Hamilton's father was a Cooper. Or it could mean that this Cooper connection was much further back in the tree, and there was another non-parental event that occurred, and that was where the Cooper was. Or it could mean that there's another name, another common name, majority name, that there's just aren't enough people from that line who have tested. So any of those are possible, along with other possibilities. All right, so one of the things that we would have to do is we would have to find a direct male descendant of Hamilton Wade Brown, Lewis Brown, Claiborne Brown, or Coopers that were in the area when Hamilton was born. Now, we do have one match on Ancestry here, who is a direct male descendant of Hamilton Wade Brown. And I actually met him on a different website and searched his name specifically on my uncle's match list on Ancestry, and thankfully he does match. Now, it is quite distant, so there was a chance that he wasn't going to match, and in fact he does not match my aunt because of the way DNA is passed down from parent to child. We don't get every marker of our parents. We get 50% of our parents, and our siblings get a different 50% than we do. So as you have that DNA going further down the generations, siblings may not have the same DNA matches of distant relatives. Well, this R. Brown is obviously a distant relative of ours, like I think something like a 4th, maybe 5th cousin. And so my uncle does match him, and it's the right centimorgan amount to match him for, I think, 4th cousin. I can't remember the exact one. But my aunt does not. All right, so, and I spoke to him, and I asked him if he could please take a Y-DNA test. Now, his results, if he took a Y-DNA test, he has not chosen to yet. I hope he does consider it, but his results actually wouldn't solve our question of who Hamilton's father was, but it would further cement the fact that Hamilton Wade Brown is our direct male line ancestor. So it would be great if he tested. It's not going to solve our current question, but it will be further evidence that Hamilton Wade Brown is our ancestor. All right, so let's look at these Cooper connections. So I went through the matches for both my uncle and my aunt on Ancestry, because that's where they both tested. They both tested on Ancestry. And I looked through tree after tree after tree, and common ancestors, and just trying to find Coopers of these distant relatives. And I did find some repeats. So matches on Ancestry that are descended from a Cooper in Tennessee circa 1816. Because Hamilton was born in 1817, we're looking for someone who lived there probably around 1816 when he was conceived. So we have a Nathaniel Cooper here. He was born in 1802, and he did live in Greene County, Tennessee. We have a couple matches that go to him, not a lot, and I cannot remember right now if we had, if both my aunt and my uncle had connections to this Nathaniel Cooper. I'd have to double check that, but there weren't a lot. There were only a couple. And then we have this Thomas Council Cooper, born in 1762, so probably one of his sons then, not himself being the father, but it's possible that he was a father. So he had many sons that could have fathered Hamilton. He lived in Fentress County, Tennessee. Now, the issue with Thomas Council Cooper here is that my uncle does not have any matches to him. I'm only getting matches on my aunt to Thomas Council Cooper, and there were only maybe two. And so that seems unlikely. I won't go into the details, but my aunt has a different DNA connection, so so that's probably where he is connecting to her from. So yeah. All right. So then we have Christopher Cooper Jr. here. And he was born in 1798, and he lived in Greene County, Tennessee in 1816. All right. Well, we actually have a lot of matches that go to this Cooper family here. So let's explore that. So Christopher Cooper Jr.'s parents is, of course, Christopher Cooper Sr. and Jane Brown. All right, so we're seeing a Brown again. Could this be someone who's connected to our Brown family? We'd have to explore that. But all right, so Christopher Cooper Jr. was the only son of Chris Sr. and Jane. They had at least 6 other children who were all daughters, and there might be a 7th. There might be a Susanna Cooper. She was on one of our through lines, but not everyone has her listed as a child to them, so I didn't include her here, but there could be another one here. All right, so to test this theory, I put into our tree, we had an unnamed daughter, which I will explore a little bit later in this video, because we're going under the assumption that Claiborne and Sarah are the grandparents, not the parents. So we have an unnamed daughter here who could potentially be Hamilton's birth mother, and I put in Christopher Cooper Jr. as the father. So that would make Chris Sr. and Jane Brown his grandparents. Now you see these little blue icons here. This is the through lines icon, and it's basically showing us that it's telling us that we have DNA connections through the through lines feature on Ancestry. I also want to add that I do have Claiborne's parents listed as Hezekiah and Anne Steubenfield, but I believe this is incorrect, and I will be taking them off as his birth parents. We had another very, very, very small DNA connection with someone who is a direct male line descendant of Hezekiah Brown, and it's incredibly small match, and isn't even showing up on all the other DNA sites. But I don't believe Hezekiah Brown Sr. is his father, but I do believe that he is somehow related. But that's not part of this video, so all right. All right, so these are the through lines for Christopher Cooper and my uncle here. And here's my uncle. Now, these are with his daughters. And we see here this Susanna Cooper, who may or may not be part of this family. We do have 5 matches who are descendants of hers, though. So as you can see with my uncle here, with Catherine, we have 2 matches. Phoebe, 10. This Susanna, 5. 1 match with Elizabeth. 1 match with Sarah. 6 matches with Lydia. 1 match under Christopher Cooper. And it's not my uncle, it's actually my aunt. So it's not really a match because it's the same family. So 0 matches under Christopher and 5 matches under Matilda Jane. So what does this mean? Well, it shows that we definitely have a connection to this Cooper family. It is very odd that we don't actually have any matches under Christopher Cooper Jr. And he had many children, so if we're getting all these matches with all his sisters, it is actually quite confusing that we're not getting any matches to Christopher Cooper Jr. And I don't have an explanation for that. I don't know why. It's possible that none of his descendants took a DNA test, and therefore none of them are on there. But, you know, with how far DNA testing has come and how many people have done it, it is unlikely that none of his descendants have tested because he had many children. So, yeah, at least one of them should have tested, but apparently not, or for some reason were not connected to Christopher Cooper Jr. All right, so let's explore Jane Brown's family here. So we just to see whether she's connected to the other Browns, because we may be connecting to all these Coopers here because of Jane Brown and not through this Cooper line. So I looked up who her parents were. We have a Jotham Brown and a Phoebe Johnston. And we also have connections to Jotham Brown. And here we go. This is a screenshot from one of our matches, a WJ on Ancestry, and I believe this is with my uncle's account here, but it might be my aunt, though. I can't remember. Now, this was a screenshot taken a while ago. This was before Ancestry did their update. So this part here actually is a lot more concise. They've brought it together, so it's not so spread out like this. They did move all the... I liked the way they had this set up here. I liked that the names were right here to the side and very small. They've now moved this down to the bottom below this area, and I don't know. I don't like the way it looks now, but I do like the way this part looks now. Anyway, so we do have this connection here to the Jotham Brown and Phoebe Johnston, but it's not through their daughter Jane. It's actually through one of their sons, John Willis Brown. And we have had a couple other matches that go to Jotham and Phoebe that are not through Jane, so her other siblings. So could we be related to Jane Brown Cooper and her parents Jotham and Phoebe, and not related to Christopher Cooper? That's the question. So that's that match. So let's explore Hamilton's mother here, his potential mother. All right. So as we see here, we've listed an unnamed daughter as born around 1800, which is close to Christopher Cooper's age. And Hamilton Wade Brown was born in 1817, so I'm thinking that this is possibly a teenaged mother of Hamilton, which would make sense as to why Claiborne and Sarah would take this child on as their own and claim it as their own, thinking about the times and, teen pregnancy, probably unmarried, all of that. Of course, that is all just speculation. But you see here, we have a picture. I have a picture here as unnamed daughter Brown's profile picture. What is this picture? All right, so we see that here. Here's her profile on our tree. I have found an 1810 census record from Wayne County, Kentucky, and we have the Claiborne's household here. So they don't list the people in the household, unfortunately, in this census. They list the numbers of like 3 males, 1 female, aged blah blah blah, and so I didn't list this in the order that it showed here, but to find the categories of this, you had to actually go to the previous page of this, and it does list the categories. So in the household of Claiborne Brown, we have 3 males aged 45 and older. One of them is probably Claiborne. Not sure who the other 2 males are. We have 1 female aged 26 to 44. This is probably Sarah Brown, and she's probably up here. This is the 1810 census, so we've got some ages here that are maybe not quite right. And then we have 1 male aged 16 to 25. Claiborne at the time was between the ages of 45 and 50. Sarah was between the ages of 40 and 50. George, who is possible, who has his own household here, if this is the same George, was about 25. Henry was about 25. So he's probably this male that's right in here. Then we have Lewis, who was aged 20. So he is he might actually be this male here, or he might be a male living with Hezekiah. So who's Hezekiah? If we remember correctly from the previous parts, Claiborne and Sarah had a Hezekiah listed in their household and listed as a speculated son of Claiborne and Sarah, but we quickly realized that that was impossible. Claiborne and Sarah were way too young to be Hezekiah's parents, even though he is listed as their son on many people's trees. I'm guessing that Hezekiah is actually Claiborne's younger brother, and which was also why I put Hezekiah Brown Sr. as Claiborne's father, but this may be a different Hezekiah. It's hard to say. There's so many question marks about this time frame because there are so few records indicating who's the parent of whom and etc. So there's really not very many birth records. There's really not very many defining records on who's related to whom and why this is so confusing. Now, because of that, there's a lot of question on who's who, So under Claiborne's household, the big question here, and what gives credence to the possibility that Claiborne and Sarah actually did have an unknown daughter, is the fact that there were 2 females under age 10 living in this household. So no idea who these 2 females are, but depending on how old they actually were at this time, one of them quite possibly could have been Hamilton's mother. Let's say it's a 10-year-old, so they were born in 1800. In 1816, they would have been 16 years old, and that's plenty old enough to become pregnant. Even as young as being 13, 14 years old in 1816, that's also old enough to have become pregnant and had a child. So, of course, at this point, this is all speculation, but it does give credence to the theory that Claiborne and Sarah had a daughter who was the mother of Hamilton Wade Brown. All right. So, what does that bring? Oh, and I circled that here. I must have forgotten that I had the slide here. But I circled this 2 females aged under 10. All right. So, Lewis's family. So this was Hamilton's potential brother. It was one of the children of Claiborne and Sarah that we do have DNA connections to. So we are connected to Lewis. Here's the family sheet for Lewis Brown and his wife, Sarah, Sally, Olive, Avery Burchett. So her parents are listed as John Burchett Sr. and Sarah Cooper. So now we have an actual Cooper connection to this Brown family, confirmed Brown family. So who is Sarah Cooper, who is the mother of Lewis's wife? And could she actually be part of our family? You know, could this be the Coopers we're looking for? So here's her little family tree here. We've got her husband, John Burchett, daughter, Sally Avery Burchett, who married Lewis Brown. And this is either the brother or the uncle, potentially, of Hamilton Wade Brown. So he married a daughter of a Cooper. Her parents were Sarah Monk, and this is his name has been spelled differently on different records, but it's either an Isles or an Isles. Yes, in some ways it's spelled Isles, but then other ways it's spelled like this with the C, indicating that the C sound is pronounced. So Isles or Isles. And his father was Arthur Cooper. I have a question mark here because when I made these slides, this was still more of a question, but I have found more evidence indicating that his father probably was Arthur Cooper here. So Arthur Cooper married a Martha Dabney. And here are their children. There's Sarah, William, Isles or Isles, Dabney, Sterling, and Elizabeth. Well, Sterling caught my eye just because of that connection with Sterling Brown being the father of William Brown, but it does not seem to be the same person. So there's that. But if we look at where these individuals lived and died, we have Dabney Cooper here, who died in Smith County, Tennessee. So we have a Cooper in Tennessee, and this is a Cooper family that is connected to our Brown family. So we may have another connection here. And this Dabney Cooper was in the 1810 census in Bedford, Virginia, and in the 1820 census in Smith, now Macon County, Tennessee. So between 1810 and 1820, they moved to Smith County, Tennessee, which is now Macon County, Tennessee. And I did look on Google Maps to see the distance between Bedford, Virginia, and which is the area of Virginia that our Browns came from as well. And they would be passing through Greene County, Tennessee to get to Macon County, Tennessee. So he had 4 sons who were the right age to Father Hamilton. So that is another connection to a Cooper here that we have. So what do we do here? So what I'll end up doing is changing the potential father here to one of the sons of Dabney Cooper, and I'll pretty much just pick any son. It doesn't matter which one it is, because right now we're not sure which one could possibly be the father, so I'll pick any of those sons as a potential father to Hamilton, which will change the tree a bit here. Obviously, all these people here would be exchanged for this son of Dabney Cooper. And I'll have to wait about 36 hours or so after I make this change for these results to show up on through lines. And when they show up on through lines, then we can see if we have any actual DNA connections with the descendants of Dabney Cooper. So that's our top two possibilities here of the Coopers. So the overall possibilities is that Lewis Brown is Hamilton's father. And since we do have a connection with Lewis Brown, a DNA connection, we know we're somehow related to this Lewis Brown, who is Hamilton's potential brother slash uncle slash father, which would mean if there's a Cooper connection, it's further back. Another possibility is Hamilton's mother is this unnamed daughter, Brown. And if you remember, Claiborne and Sarah also possibly have a daughter named Rebecca, but she would have been much older, and in fact older than the other potential brothers of Hamilton here. So I've discounted her as a possibility of being Hamilton's mother, especially since she was also married at the time and had children. So there's no reason to believe that she would be his mother. So it would have to be a much younger daughter. So Hamilton's possibility to Hamilton's mother is an unnamed daughter, Brown. Possible father is a relative of Lewis's mother-in-law, Sarah Cooper, or the possible father is Chris Cooper Jr. So either one of the sons of Dabney Cooper or Christopher Cooper Jr. here. That's the second possibility. The third possibility is we have no recent Cooper connection, and it could be that we're not actually even connected to the Coopers. Like I said in the beginning, with the Y-DNA results of my dad, the overwhelming name here is Cooper, but it could be that not enough people from our actual male line have taken Y-DNA tests, and that's why the last name hasn't shown up. So that's a possibility too. Those are the three possibilities right now that I can think of for Hamilton's parents. So what's next? How do we move on from this? Because right now, as of this video, we're at a standstill. I can't really move forward. There are some small things I can do. I can try to go through the family trees of the Y-DNA results that my dad has, and I have tried to do that, and I've struck out with pretty much all of them. I haven't, and then some of them don't list a most distant common answer or distant relative, male line relative. So the only thing we can do right now is try to find direct male line descendants of Hamilton Wade Brown. So hopefully that R. Brown will take a test. The direct male line of Lewis Brown and his brothers. Direct male line of, and getting one of the direct male descendants of Lewis Brown or one of the other brothers will actually be a big indication, because if they don't match the same Y-DNA as us, then that means that Hamilton's father was not Lewis Brown or one of the brothers, and there you go. So that would solve that mystery, and we would know that Hamilton Wade Brown is not actually a Brown. So it would be great if we got a direct male line descendant of Lewis Brown or one of his brothers to test. That would solve that question. Or trying to find a direct male line descendant of Christopher Cooper Jr. or Dabney Cooper. That will be a big indication as to whether we are connected to either one of these Cooper families. And I would also like to get direct male line descendants of William Riley Brown and Jotham Brown. These are two Browns that seem to be connected to our Browns, but we just don't know how. There's no paper records connecting them. There's just DNA that's connecting them. So getting a direct male line descendant of William Riley Brown and a direct male line descendant of Jotham Brown would be ideal. All right, so that is the end. Thank you for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next part. I don't know when the next part's going to be because, like I said, we really need some Y-DNA here. All right, thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.